Opinions and beliefs presented on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the management, the affiliates and broadcast partners, or the sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. Between science and ignorance, there is filler.
And hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Paranormal Filler. I'm your host, Wes Forsyth. Original broadcast date is February 26, 2017, and I will remind you as always that Paranormal Filler is sponsored each week by Ken Boggles, House of Cards, Tarot by Ken.com. We've got a good show lined out tonight. I think I've got all. I'm really hoping that I've got all my technical crap kind of tinkered out here. But basically, our guest tonight is Tracy Moore, aka you may know her online as the Pixie Baby. We're going to be talking spirituality, creativity, paranormal, metaphysical. Tracy is a psychic medium, empath, sensitive energy worker, author, coach, workshop facilitator, certified Reiki master. Her goal in her work is to help others find their truth. So we're going to see if there's any chance that she can help us kind of find some of that truth tonight with me online. I pretty much took it easy this weekend. We had a really lousy bunch of weather come through Kentucky. So, although today was beautiful, it was a little chilly. But I'm going to confess. I'm going to fess up. I spent the afternoon pretty much sitting in my recliner, watching Property Brothers on the do-it-yourself thing. I learned some things. I learned a lot. I learned a lot today. I learned that that people with money just go stupid. It was amazing that you buy if I spend $800,000 on a freaking house, by golly, I expect to be ready to move in. I cannot believe people sell this crap, and but that's beside the only other thing. I'm going to talk to you a moment about gay marriage, and the reason I want to talk to you about it are there are so many people out there saying, oh my God, we cannot have gay marriage. I watched the worst bunch of heterosexual marriages today. These people should not be in the same house together. So just don't even go there with me. I think they should. I think marriage licenses should have a test. There, I said. Hi, Tracy. What have you gotten yourself into?
It sounds like a little bit of fun.
I try to have fun, and I just try to throw in a little observation every week to keep things going. And that was my observation today. I don't guess I can watch TV without yelling at it and cursing. That's what I'm learning about myself. Well, let's get into it. I read a little bit of your bio to the listeners, of course, and so now you are a psychic medium. First thing I always like to, I love working with psychic mediums. I love talking with psychic mediums. Don't let anything that I say tonight make you think that I'm any type of skeptic, because everybody who listens to me knows that is so far out the door, it's just not even funny. Tell me now, as a psychic medium, now how do your messages, if you will, how do you see the metaphysical world? How do ghosts and spirits present themselves to you?
Okay. Well, I've been like this since I was a really small child. Some of my earliest memories were of people in my room that shouldn't have been in my room, but they didn't really freak me out until people told me that I should be freaked out because there's nobody in my room. But over the years, it's different. I mean, I don't always see them. Sometimes it comes through as where I can actually, hear, them communicating a message. Other times I'll get a couple of words with maybe a couple of flashes of imagery to help me put the pieces together. And a lot of times that's what it's hard to explain sometimes, that it can be a little bit like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. It's not like sitting there watching a movie all the time. Most of the time, it's actually not that way. You kind of have to learn how to put together different sensory clues into a cohesive picture that you hope is going to make sense to the person that the message is intended for.
I do understand that because really, I've talked to so many psychic mediums, and I like asking that because everybody seems to have a little different way that they experience that realm, if you will. Mm-hmm. Now, I do like in your bio, I did catch that. Now, you are. I like being on the same page as my medium. You do make the distinction between what we would commonly call ghost and spirits.
Yes.
Now, for the listener, I'm going now. Stop me if I don't define it as you, same way you do. But to me, spirits are dearly departed that have continued their journey that we can still bridge a communication gap with. Sometimes they come to us, sometimes we go to them, but they have completed that step, or at least have continued that step of the journey. As where ghosts are the ones that just stick around and stomp around in your attic.
No, I completely agree with your definition there. Yeah, I mean, another term that I interchange a lot with ghost is an earthbound entity, which is different than other sorts of entities. But no, that's absolutely the same distinction that I make.
Yeah, and also I do. Sometimes I get lazy and kind of throw out a ghost, because a ghost to me is a spirit in the same way that a thumb is a finger.
Yes.
But so I do like to get our definitions down. Do they, in your the way you experience them, do you experience them differently as far as a spirit versus a ghost?
Well, most of the time I would have to say yes to that. Usually a ghost to me usually does feel a little bit more, I guess the word would be, I don't want to particularly say unpleasant, but in some ways it is, because a lot of times when you encounter a ghost, they've had something traumatic that has kept them from moving on to wherever they need to be, or they've just decided that they just want to stay here and mess with people because they weren't nice when they were alive, so they're still not nice. Personalities typically do not change. So, yeah, usually a spirit is a little bit more, not quite as intense, but that can vary too based on the personality of that spirit, because some of them are very strong personalities.
Right. Now you, to back up a little bit, now you started noticing your gifts at an early age. You make the comment that you did not get any support on this. Was it, oh my God, my kid's crazy? Was it that one, or was it, oh no, that's just your imaginary friend? How did your friends and family react when you first? I don't know if sharing's the right word, but when you first acknowledged what was going on, or in what you were seeing.
Okay. Well, with my family, it was at first, especially with my father, it was a try to put it onto imagination, which later turned into, once I didn't stop in my persistence, then it turned into I was possessed by the devil, because...
Oh, goody.
I know. That's always fun to hear when you're like 6 years old, because I came from a pretty strict religious household when I was a child. So this kind of stuff just wasn't cool. It wasn't accepted. So it was rough. I just kind of had to learn how to wing things on my own. And I actually shut things down for many years because I felt very uncomfortable. I thought maybe there was something wrong with me. I felt like maybe I had, done something that I need to fix. So that's a big part of who I am now when I talk to younger people or even older people who are just coming into learning to work with their gifts and abilities, is I try to be that support system that I didn't have, because I think it's really important.
Now in the process, now you said you did you ignore it, or were you able to kind of hit the mute button?
No. Well, I was able to hit the mute button for a while when I was in my really early 20s. But after it was pointed out to me as a young child that there was something scary and bad about who I was and what I was doing, I was absolutely terrified, because I didn't know how to try to shut it down. I didn't have the emotional or mental fortitude to do that as a little girl. So I spent my childhood scared.
When did kind of take us through the progression now? I believe you said early 20s. When did you start to, I guess the word would be embrace. When did you start to, or at least accept your gift?
Well, I started to accept it when I was in my, probably I would say later teens, is when I started to make the flip in my own mind that not everything that grown-ups say is the truth. And certainly not everything we hear on a Sunday morning is necessarily the truth for us. So once I reached that age where you start to, I guess, rebel a little bit and start to use some independent reasoning, then I had to go through my own internal struggle as opposed to the external struggle with other people.
Did you seek anyone's guidance, or did you just wing this?
I winged it. I actually didn't have an opportunity to talk to anybody in a spiritual community, I guess, or the paranormal community until it was either right before my 30th birthday or a little after I hit 30. Up until then, it was just me on my own trying to figure it out.
How did that go?
Well, which part of it? When I finally started to talk to other people, or
when I would think, okay, it sounds like a very lonely place to be, trying to deal with dead people, with that background, without someone to say, hey, okay, you can do this. Here's the silver lining.
It was definitely a lonely place, and I've had to do a lot of work, on that. It was not easy, and it's one of those things. I think that now we're a little bit luckier, and for me, I grew up, in a pretty country type setting where, not only was my family not accepting of this kind of stuff, it was not the ideal setting for people like me in general. It just was not that type of community. But now, I mean, these younger ones coming up now, they have it so much nicer in many ways. Still, maybe not the family acceptance, but my God, turn on the TV any night of the week and you're going to see a medium somewhere. You're going to see a ghost hunter somewhere. Right. So that makes me happy to see, at least, even if it is just a novelty to most people, at least it's more mainstreamed. So people don't have to feel quite so out of their element.
I've said it 100 times on the show. I encounter a lot of people that do not believe in ghosts. Mm-hmm. And then every damn one of them starts to tell me their ghost story. So, so I don't always, I don't buy all of the skepticism. We're going to take a quick commercial break, everybody. You're listening to Paranormal Filler.
Hello, friends. Are you exhausted with life? Resent your children? Maybe your husband is cheating on you. Get yourself a tarot reading with Ken Model. He can provide you with the clarity, guidance, and answers you need. That's tarotbyken.com. He makes things seem less shitty.
And welcome back to Paranormal Filler. My guest is Tracy Moore, a.k.a. the Pixie Baby. Now, I'm going to take you in a completely different direction because it's not even mentioned in your bio, but because I followed the links that you sent me, you write for a site sometimes, and I've got it pulled up here on my screen. The headline says Witch.
Uh-huh.
but everybody, but for some reason in the URL they decided to call it badwitch.es. So I'm assuming you're not a bad witch. I'm going to make that. I'm going to take that leap. Now the reason I went this way, honestly, I wasn't even going to go this way, but something really bothered me this week about something that was going on in the, if you'll pardon the expression, witch community.
Okay.
Now, because you write for this site, do you consider yourself some type of witch?
Honestly, no. I mean, I don't subscribe to labels at all. And but if I would have to put myself into a category, if I was forced to, which I've been a couple of times, to put a label on myself, I guess the closest thing that I would come to would be, kind of the old original definition of what a witch would be somebody who, is in tune with nature and who's in tune with, the spirit world. But as far as what society defines as the word witch, no.
Okay, no, fair enough. No, that makes perfect sense to me. Now this is what I saw go on this week, and while I do, once again, I am definitely not a witch, I do believe that the modern, how would I say this? What I understand as witchery, if you will, is the ability to enhance and funnel intent for a purpose. Would you say that's a fair definition of what your common witch does?
Yep.
Okay, there was this thing where Friday night, online, a bunch of the witches were supposed to cast this binding spell on our president, Donald Trump.
What?
You didn't hear about this?
No.
Oh my God, girl, you have not been on Twitter or Facebook all week, have you?
I'm not online a whole heck of a lot, to be honest, and I don't pay attention to news very much either. So, oh my God, go ahead, tell me the story.
This actually made the news. Fox covered it. I think CNN had a blurb on it, but some witch, warlock, whatever the hell he is, put up this thing where he was inviting all of his online witch friends to do and posted a spell online for them to perform Friday night at midnight, which he didn't say what time zone. That always bugs me when people say things have to be done at midnight. Yeah. And it was now, as he presented as a simple binding spell. That way there would be no repercussions. Because a true binding spell is a do not harm spell. In other words, you do something to stop the person from doing harm.
You ever heard of a little thing called free will?
Be that as it may, I'm just the messenger.
No. I wasn't directing that at you. That kind of is making me feel a little peevish, that story.
Well, but his thing is, it was, you would bind him so that he could not do harm to the country. Okay, good intentions. I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Now, here's my thing about it. A, because he posted the spell online and invited everybody who thought they were a witch to join in on this spell, that he was, first of all, you don't give a loaded gun to a 4-year-old.
Thank you.
And I have, in my paranormal life, encountered what I perceive, what I believe to have been places that the problems, the paranormal problems they were having were caused by people tinkering with crap they read on the internet.
Yes.
One case was they tried to summon a demon.
Oh.
But I do think that there was some spells cast on a friend of mine at Bobby Mackey's that
Oh, geez.
that were meant to get her out, basically get them out of their job, to create hardship in their life, blah 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 blah. But so that was my interpretation, and that was, I mean, as far as my psychic abilities, that's what my guides told me, et cetera, et cetera. But the point is, the spells were done so badly that they're really, in other words, no, they didn't summon a demon, and and no, this didn't happen. But it was all because the spells were done badly. That's A. The other thing is, okay, now if I understand witchery, if you do anything with bad intent, if you do anything with the intention to harm or with hatred in your heart, it will come back to you. And I've heard anywhere from 3 to 7-fold.
Right. I mean, be prepared to get your ass bit for that.
Okay. So, even if some of the people who did the spell had the best of intentions in their heart, I've seen enough crap posted online about politics to know that a lot of them would have just went at it going, I hate this son of a bitch, I'll bind his ass. And now, okay, but here's the thing. Now, here's my theory. Because you're doing this as a collective spell, those bad intentions would dilute any good intentions that were included overall. Does that sound reasonable to you?
Absolutely. I mean, because, yes, when you are doing something as a collective, you have to factor in all of that energy. And, of course, if you've got people in there without a pure good intention, even as ill-advised as that would be, my goodness, of course it's going to dilute it.
Okay, and in that dilution, okay, let's assume that the whole, if you do something with bad intentions, it comes back to you threefold.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any reason, because this was a collective spell, that same bad intention would not reflect back even at the people that did not have bad intentions in their heart.
And that, I do believe, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because, like I said, I am not a witch, but I've studied a lot. I have a lot of knowledge about a lot of things. And I think that that's part of the danger that can be involved in working with a collective, because if you do not know all of these people that you're working with, you're putting yourself basically at the mercy of the collective energy of that group. And that can be said for anything.
Exactly. Thank you for validating my fear and like I said, because I wasn't worried about what they were going to do to anybody, but I was worried about once that ugly intent got out there, it's like spray. To me, it was like washing your car and having the guy standing next to you doing it with muddy water. That was so that okay. So I put you on the spot there, and
no, not at all.
And I'm glad you validated me a little bit. So if you happen to be invited to a coven meeting, just as an observer or whatever, mention that to them, that it's a really piss poor idea.
Well, I'm sure I won't be, because I'm not a witch, and I don't. I certainly, even if I were, which I am not, I would not be a coven kind of girl anyway. but yeah, I mean, if I ever come across one, I'll be sure to spread the word.
Okay, well, I mean, if nothing else, that gave me a chance to get that out on the air and to tell everybody how batshit crazy they are for thinking things like that would
well,
work.
you can't. A lot of things in the paranormal world, even, put aside anything to do with, witchery, witchcraft, whatever. Man, people, they go forth with, even if their intentions are good, if you approach these things with ignorance, which isn't like being an insult, it's the real definition of the word, ignorance, you could be getting yourself in a heap of trouble before you even know what you've done. And I do wish that people would be a little more careful and slow in their approach and maybe educate themselves a little bit better before they head out into the paranormal realms, because it's not a joke.
And that will be a good spot for us to do our segue to our next commercial break. Everybody, you're listening to Paranormal Filler.
TarotByKen.com. Unlike other tarot readers, Ken reads multiple spreads during each session to provide you with clear, concise answers and guidance. Don't take my word for it. I'm just a voice on the radio. From Kelly, one reading with Ken completely changed things around for me. Jennifer, I feel so rejuvenated about my life. Melissa, it has changed my life. Visit TarotByKen.com to arrange your own tarot date, or you can call or text Ken at 859-229-4833.
And welcome back to Paranormal Filler. My guest is Tracy Moore, and I just wasted 15 minutes talking about something that she honestly didn't even know about, but it was fun. Now I do want to ask you, okay, on the psychic medium front, let's okay, when I take it as far as when we're talking about someone, the spirit side, someone comes to you saying, "Hey, I need to talk to my grandmother or whoever." How does that process take place in your mind to make that connection?
Okay. Well, in my mind, I simply, before I start working, I definitely clear myself. I should start growing sage, because I go through a lot of sage. And I just try to make sure that my space and my intentions and mind are as clear and clean as they can be. And I just simply set the intention to open myself up to positive energies, and that only messages come through that are going to be for that person's ultimate good. That's not to say that nothing that doesn't feel or sound negative ever comes through, but that's how I begin the process, is to try to make the stage as clear and helpful as possible. Because first of all, I don't want to be bringing in anything or anybody that I wouldn't want in my home as a guest. And second of all, I don't want to be just giving information that could be damaging to the person that I'm speaking with.
Now, do you feel like once again, this gets into how people get their messages, going back to the beginning of the program. Do you feel like the messages come to you directly, or do you have like spirit guides that filter it for you? How do you think that the filtering is just by your intent? Kind of run that through for me real quick.
Okay, sure. That's interesting, because I do have guides that I work with. And I guess I'm so used to working with them that sometimes when I either am just out at random, because this happens a good bit where I'll, just be roaming around and, come across a spirit or ghost sometimes. And so I still believe that it's being filtered. It's just not something that I'm always conscious of.
Mm-hmm. No, that's cool. I've heard it both ways, but I'm interested in that filtering. How different people. I guess I could say you might as well say I was interested in who has your back, as they say. Now, when you're dealing with a ghost, now, I mean, do they walk up to you in Walmart? I mean, are we talking most of the ones you encounter are at haunted locations? When and why do you encounter ghosts?
Well,
Or are they just drawn to you?
That's definitely part of the equation, and that's when I'm mentoring people who are working with their abilities, new or trying to hone them in. That's one of the things that when you do, and I think we all have abilities to an extent. I don't think that it makes anyone any more special than anybody else, but when you've worked on it, or if you have it a little more strongly than other people, I do think that you kind of stand out as a beacon. Like, hey, that girl over there, she can see us, she can hear us, so let's go. I do think that happens. And as far as the circumstances where I encounter them, ghosts can actually be anywhere. I mean, they can be in Walmart, and they could be. I mean, any number of circumstances. There could have been something that went down on that property before that Walmart was built. There could be somebody shopping in the Walmart who a ghost is attached to that just follows them around wherever they go. So, there's no special place where ghosts, they do tend to be more prevalent in certain locations, of course, but you encounter them in the weirdest places sometimes.
Well, see, my personal theory is I would think that Walmarts would be haunted, just because my thing on ghosts are I think that most of them attach themselves to a person, place, or thing. Okay, very very generalized, but they do attach to something, and I just know a lot of people that are attached to Walmart in life. If you go someplace 5 days out of the week, I would think that would just be a natural place you would be drawn to after you've
after you pass, right?
After you've pushed up the daisies, as they say.
Right, because people, who have had the same job that they've loved for, 40-some years of their life, it's not uncommon to have a workplace haunting because that person loved that job so much that they want to stick around and keep working.
Now, when someone approaches you with a ghost problem, what is your go-to response? How do you try to handle this situation? The reason I ask it, let me preface this by saying, you said that some earthbound spirits who cannot or will not be crossed over. So let's talk about the ones that can be, and then I want to talk about the ones that you say cannot or will not.
Okay. Well, with any situation, if somebody approaches me that has a problem, first of all, I am a really different mix of scientific and spiritual. I can be, it's kind of strange to say, but I approach every situation with, a really questioning mind as to whether this is even the case or, so we verify first. And the ones that can be crossed over, I just try to have conversations with them to help them to understand, that they're free to go. A lot of times they don't understand that they're actually able to leave because, especially in cases of trauma or somebody who sometimes they may have had dementia before they passed away, they might just seriously be confused about what's going on with them, and they need someone to explain to them, hey, you're free to go, it's okay. And other times there might have been something that happened that there's unfinished business, something wasn't solved, and they just need somebody to hear them before they feel that they can move on. So those are the most common ones that I deal with who can actually leave. Now,
tell me about the ones. I understand. A lot of people say, will not. But what about? Okay, I want to first. Let's concentrate on the who cannot be crossed over. Now, do you mean that as you cannot cross them over, or they cannot cross over?
I mean that as I cannot cross them over because they do not wish to, and sometimes I believe that there are entities who are neither ghost or spirit, who were never human in the first place. Who, right. I don't care who you are, you're not going to cross that over. But for the most part, when I speak of cannot cross over, I see it more as either that that ghost is not receptive to wanting to go. Some people make that choice for whatever reason. Some of them are, just they want to hang around and they like where they're at. Others are just simply, they were nasty people and they want to stick around and continue to be nasty. So they won't go.
Now, is there anything in your little bag of witchery tricks? I mean, I'm sorry.
Nice.
If someone has one of those ghosts hanging around them,
Mm-hmm.
now we're talking ghosts, not the other things.
Right.
Is there what would you do to help that person? Not the ghost. I mean, you can't help them.
Right.
Screw them. But what would you do to help the person?
Well, I mean, and a lot of it depends on that person's own comfort zones and what they feel good about, because some people are very religious, so they would find more meaning and comfort in holy water and metals and things like that. And I believe those can be effective in trying to create at least a little bit of a barrier around yourself and things that you really don't wish to interact with. Another one that I like a lot is black salt. And that's usually, in pretty serious cases of negative manifestations going on. And that's one thing that black salt can have a tendency to make any entity leave. So it's like if your grandma's there and you like having her there, there's a chance that the black salt, it's kind of like the equivalent of brick dust in the voodoo world. You put it across your threshold, you shall not pass. So in really serious cases, that would be one of the first things that I would go to if, everything else just didn't seem to be helping.
Okay, explain it to me. And this is a sincere question, although when it comes out of my mouth, it's going to sound like I'm being a total smartass.
No, it won't.
Yeah, it will. That's me. Okay, I understand the threshold, thou shalt not pass.
Mm-hmm.
If the ghost is in the house when you do that, doesn't that just lock him in?
No, I do not
explain it
think
to me.
so.
Okay.
Because it works as a repellent. Actually, it's not like putting up an electric fence where on either side of the fence you're going to make sure that the cow stays on whichever side of the fence it's on when you put the fence up. It actually.
Well, I wish it worked like that, but go ahead.
That would be nice. But how most of that works, holy water, metals, black salt, is those things kind of work as, number one, a protectant for the human that's still there. And it works as, kind of a repellent for just to kind of try to keep a little bit of a barrier between you and them and to hopefully kind of just edge them out at least a little bit. And it's usually if you have a place that the problem is severe enough and the people can't move, a lot of these things are going to need to be done on a fairly regular maintenance type basis, because sometimes if an entity decides that it's going to stay, it's going to stay.
Now, do you think it's the mystical qualities of the black salt, or is it... Because I'm willing to bet you don't just buy a jar of black salt and go out and start throwing it around. I bet you do something to embed your intent in the intent of the people that you're trying to help.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are some inherent qualities to it from the study that I did on it that are inherent in the black salt. But absolutely, just like anything else, I think that, adding your intent and asking for, the assistance of whoever, whatever you feel comfortable in, asking help of, all of that stuff kind of makes the nice mixture that makes the perfect recipe to help the people in the best way for them.
And another thing you mentioned was I always have trouble with people that first thing they yank out of their bag is holy water. Because, now this is my interpretation, and I'm not Catholic, so my interpretation of holy water is very, very mundane, basically what I've seen on TV. But it doesn't make sense to me that holy water by itself would have any effect at all on a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Because a ghost, by definition, is not necessarily not evil. In other words, it's not. You could have a ghost that doesn't even recognize the authority of the Almighty. Not saying that there is an authority, but once again, I think that the intent, if it's done properly, might be effective.
I would agree with that. I think that that's a fair assessment. Because absolutely, I'm not a Catholic either, and I don't, and I think too, in a lot of cases, with what you see on the TV shows, is a lot of times when you get the holy water, it's not always, well, actually, I don't know that I've ever seen it on a show where it's the homeowner who's going around using the holy water. They usually have a priest come in and use the holy water. And so this priest is putting their intent out there, in my opinion.
Right.
Yes.
I've been in several houses where people said, we got some holy water and threw it around the house, and it didn't work. And I'm going, yeah. Now let's talk about, there are other entities. I accept that. I believe that fully. When I got into ghost hunting, it wasn't that I didn't believe in all that stuff, but it was like, I'm not worried about it. What have you experienced out there that you think people should be aware of is lurking in the corners?
Okay. Well, and I hate to use the word demon because that has, a pretty, specialized connotation that would, be specific to a religious belief system. But I mean, entities that could be compared to, let's just use the word. I believe that there are definitely those types of entities out there. I also believe that there are what I like to call nature spirits, nature elementals, that, and a lot of times they will be attached to a particular place of land. And I have encountered them more than once, where there will just be a piece of land, Wes, that is just so unpleasant. And most people that go there, they either just feel creepy, or they have, everybody that ever builds a house there has a bunch of crap that happens constantly. And so I think that those are a type of entity that exists out there too, that people, and I don't want to put out there a bunch of fear though, because I think that we can't really live our life that way. But at the same time, I think to have a little bit of an awareness is helpful, because even if you're not a believer, sometimes you experience things that you just cannot explain. And to be aware of some of the possibilities, I think, could save people a lot of grief.
Now, along those lines, maybe not even along those lines, but now one thing I saw in your bio is now you do try to share your knowledge with other people that are learning their gifts and learning how to use them. But you make a very strong point of telling them what to be careful of.
Yep.
Throw me out a couple things mistakes you see other mediums make, I guess would be the way to put it. What should someone who is learning to embrace their gifts beware of?
Okay. Rule number 1, do not go into a location, or even if you're doing your services by distance through phone or however you do it, don't go in there and make demands. That is one of the first rookie mistakes, and it's one of the most awful ones that I've never really understood, because to me that would be like me figuring out, where does Wes live, and going to your house and just barging in and saying, hey, man, I can hear that shower running, but you better come out here and show yourself to me. You have to understand that these, especially when you're dealing with spirits and all of them, even negative entities, you have to approach them with respect, because there's some potential there for some serious consequences if you do not. And it's just, I think human decency carries across the lines of even life and death. It would be like the equivalent of going to a cemetery and knocking over a gravestone. That, just I don't understand why the approach sometimes is so aggressive. That's one of the first things I would say. Prepare yourself. Make sure that you definitely do some smudging or meditation before you go to clear yourself out. Figure out, do you want to work with guides? Who are your guides? Do you want to work with angels? Familiar yourself with angels. And then go in there with a respectful attitude and be prepared to not be able to handle everything you come across, because there are times when you're just going to have to back away and be okay with that, because otherwise you could even cause more, especially if you're going into a troubled situation to begin with. If you don't know how to handle, I would much rather see someone say, this is above my pay grade, and I'm going to make some phone calls, see if I can find someone who can help you. Because if you just go in there and try to bluff your way through it, you may have just made their problem worse. Those are my top ones that I would recommend when going out to actually do the work.
How do you feel about channeling?
I think it has to be done cautiously, and I think that you have to really be sure that that's what you want to do, because that is, giving control over your body to another being in essence. And I don't know, that's not something that I've done a whole lot of. Have I done it? Yeah. But that's not something that I would recommend for most people, and it's definitely not something to go into without a lot of knowledge of how you need to handle yourself.
I agree. Of all the mediums that I've ever been in the field with, that's really, other than just being an ass in general, that's the only thing a medium can do that sends cold chills up my spine. And I don't care if they're how gifted I think they are, how strong of a medium they are. I see them. I've seen them do that, and when I see that, I think it's like licking the toilet seat as far as I'm concerned. It's just so exposing yourself to so much danger that that's the only, like I said, that's the only thing.
I don't even mess with a Ouija board, because I feel that you're opening a gateway to things that there's just something for me, and anybody out there who likes to use them, that's certainly a prerogative, and there's no judgment here. It's just me personally. That to me feels like a very uncertain and potentially unsafe situation, because that is basically a door that you throw open without being able to necessarily say who you're going to allow to come through that door. And that's why, to me, I kind of put the two pretty closely together. Those are just two things that I'm not super comfortable with.
I understand that. I'm undecided on Ouija boards, except that I would not use one in my house.
No.
And the reason is, okay, I'm going to make that assumption that I can open a doorway. Now, if I do it correctly and my intent is pure and everything falls into line, only whoever I want is going to come through that door. But I still just opened a doorway. And, so I don't, but now in a haunted location, the part that bugs me is the whole using my hands to move the planchette.
Yes.
That's the part that bugs me about it. I don't like turning myself over that far. And now, and for the listeners that haven't heard the speech, yes, I do use dowsing rods. It's a different process. Kiss my ass. It doesn't work the same. But okay, I like that you feel that way. We've got a few minutes left now. Let's touch a little bit on your on Reiki work. Okay. I have had Reiki work and different types of energy work done to varying degrees. It has been successful in what I wanted. what are the most common things that people come to you wanting Reiki treatment for? And tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay. The most common things that people come for are, energy blockages is a big one, because the energetic centers in the body can become clogged, and so Reiki energy can help to, if you're having problems with, say you feel like you're having a hard time communicating, or you feel like your heart has been kind of blocked because of different types of emotional pain, that kind of stuff I have people come to me for energetically. Physical pain, it can be very, very effective, and it's super gentle because there's no physical contact that's made. There's no pressure. Those are common ones. I'm thinking, what else here? I like the fact that I forget which major hospital it is. It might be Johns Hopkins, but I could be wrong because that wouldn't be the first time. But I think that they are actually, for several years, have been getting Reiki practitioners to come in to their cancer ward and to perform Reiki on cancer patients just to help them to be more physically comfortable, which I think is awesome.
I was not aware that that they were doing that. I've had mixed results with it, but I think a lot of that is my own baggage, so I don't really necessarily blame the practitioners. Now I do have, and they're going to be coming on the show, but they don't really call what they do Reiki, but the spirit mechanics, and they're going to be coming on board the show with me. They did energy work on me, and one of my complaints is I have bad shoulders, and you know what they did? Now, whether it was mind over matter or whatever, it did help for a couple of days. Unfortunately, though, the effects seem to have gone away, and that's just because I treat my body like the backseat of a rental car, and I'm sure of that. But I do. It's one of those things. I believe it can help, but at the same time, I see people that think that things like that are going to be the end-all, be-all.
Oh, no.
And then they're disappointed when, oh, no, you should have taken an aspirin. And I, so I'm always interested in that. But now, it's one of those, now how do you do that? Because that's one of those things you say that you can do remotely.
Yeah.
How does that work remotely? See, I'm a tactile guy. I like the person in the room with me, whether even on a, I've had some psychic readings over the radio, but when it comes to working with energy, how do you process that in your mind to get the results to the remote person?
Actually, what I do is you're going to laugh, and it's perfectly fine because it's just my process. I actually, and it's not a doll because I have a thing with dolls. Dolls and I are not friends. I do not like them. I have a stuffed animal that I actually use as a surrogate, that I imagine that stuffed animal being the person, and I set my intention that's, that for the time being, this stuffed animal is standing in for the person, and that's how I do it. Sometimes, other times, I just, will get a directional sense of where that person is, and just go ahead and, mentally intend. Now, I'm with you that I prefer for that person to be in close physical proximity too, but that's not always possible. So, yeah, there you have it. Stuffed animals, they work.
Voodoo. She practices voodoo. Voodoo teddy bear.
I'm telling you what, first I'm a witch, now I'm a voodoo priestess. What's next?
I have ruined your reputation. No, actually, now I would not laugh at that because to me you just described me using a focal object. And when I meditate, a lot of times I have to use a focal object, or I cannot concentrate for shit. So using a focal object to do that actually makes perfect sense to me.
Oh, good. And it does to me, too, because I don't think that, the teddy bear actually becomes the person. It's just, for me, that's a way for me to focus my intention, my energy, and my attention. So, yeah.
Okay. We're at the end of the show. Now, let's get some plugs in for you. First of all, the thepixiebaby.com. That is the website, thepixiebaby.com, and it has links to her blog, which is mostly poetry, which honestly, I hate to tell you, I don't get into poetry. But it does have about her services. It has, believe I saw you've got your social media links on the page. So thepixiebaby.com is where you can get in touch with her and find out more. Tracy, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I hope you've enjoyed being on Paranormal Filler.
I have. Thank you for having me. I want to say one more thing, though. On the site, I know it is mostly poetry, but every Monday I usually do a spiritually based article, and then every Wednesday I post a true paranormal story. So it's not all poetry.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
It's been really nice to talk to you. Thank you for having me on.
Everybody, you've been listening to Paranormal Filler.
Paranormal Filler.